Honestly, if you still have questions about who exactly is in the MVP race at this point, you're just not watching basketball closely enough in the W. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome to another episode of PHNX Mercury, here with your host, Stephen PridGeon-Garner. Also joined by the one and only Kevo Post. You find him on Twitter there. Real name is actually Kevin Thomas. Kevin, how you doing today, my man?
Doing good, Stephen. It's a good Friday, and I'm excited to be talking about some Phoenix Mercury basketball with the basketball savant himself, SPG, Stephen PridGeon-Garner.
Appreciate you, my man. We were kind of talking right before we started. Kevin's been busy with his other obligations. There's been a lot going on pertaining to everything with the Arizona Wildcats pod. So he was saying that today's episode of Mercury is going to be a nice catch-up, recap type of episode for him. So it's been a lot going on since the last time we spoke with you all. It's been about 4 games that have taken place. The Mercury are 2-2 in this stretch of games. Just to quickly recap said games that have taken place since the last time we spoke. On the 29th of June, to close out the month, the Mercury lost to the Las Vegas Aces at home. Then they went on the road to face the Dallas Wings in one of 2 games in kind of a series style of games back-to-back with one another. The Mercury did lose that game, making for the first time that they've lost back-to-back games all season long so far. Had a handful of days off before the game that took place on Monday against the Dallas Wings, with which the Mercury won 102-72. Was a very impressive kind of order restoring type of win, if you will. Couple days off before Wednesday's win over the Minnesota Lynx. Obviously a team that's been a thorn in everybody's side the last 2 seasons, but historically for the Mercury, it's been a team that they've always gone back and forth with. So there's kind of a nice little setting of the table in terms of build up for that game. Add to that, the Mercury had been 0-2 going into that win over the Minnesota Lynx going into Wednesday's game. Also hadn't had Alyssa Thomas in any of the games so far this season against the Lynx. And naturally, you insert the MVP by if you're asking me, if you're talking to me about it, you insert the MVP and you see the difference in said games. The game flow is very similar to how the first 2 matchups between those teams went. Insert Alyssa Thomas and everything that she is as a leader, as a focal point, as a hub for offense, as an anchor for defense, as an impact player, especially when games are close, and you see the difference. The Mercury just losing 1 game early in the season without Alyssa in that first matchup with the Lynx. The second game was a little different context-wise because of who was available. The Lynx had Nafisa Kahleah in that game. The Lynx or the Mercury didn't have 2/3 of their big 3 in that game, so that makes for a big discrepancy in terms of that matchup. So it goes the way you might potentially expect for it to, especially with that game taking place in Minnesota. Come back to Phoenix for game 3 of that season series. And again, the difference is Alyssa Thomas with that. They cleaned up their game process and little things like that, but generally speaking, the impact of Alyssa Thomas and all of the kind of build up in the conversations and discourse around who's the MVP, who's in the MVP conversation. For me, there's only 3 names right now. Starts with Alyssa Thomas. And again, I said it starts with Alyssa Thomas. Nafisa Kahleah is right there as 1B or number 2, depending on how you want to look at it. And number 3 within all of that is the one and only Alyssa Gray, who Kevin had the chance to see in person a little over a week ago as he had his trip over to Atlanta and had a chance to kind of assess that. Kevin, you want to give a quick thought on everything that you saw from Big Al, Alyssa Gray in that game?
I mean, yeah, it was special. To be quite honest with you, if I'm being real with you, there was a lot more going on that I was paying attention to at that game, including the swag surf, including all of the Elite Liberty players, including Natasha Cloud. Yeah, I mean, I know you and I came back and I just wanted to talk about Natasha Cloud with you. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, sure. But yeah, I did get to witness some Alyssa Gray, and it was great, and she is in that conversation. But you're right, the conversation must start with AT. just for all of the things that she does bring to every game for the Phoenix Mercury. I said it on Twitter a couple weeks ago, like triple doubles with stats that statistically are your lowest are incredibly impressive. And yeah, she can really do it all.
Yeah, she can do it all. That's the Cliff Notes version of if you want to dive into Alyssa Thomas's game.
Hey, that's how I graduated college, Steven. Don't talk down on Cliff Notes, okay?
What I will say too, real quick, while we're on the topic of Kevin, Kevin was given homework with his trip over to the East Coast, and obviously with going to an Atlanta Dream game while he was in the Atlanta area, he checked that box off. Got to watch them play the New York Liberty, correct?
Yes.
So top tier type of game, 2 of the top 4 teams in the entire W going at it, at a space where both teams are operating at some of their best on the season so far. So obviously he got to swag surf. He mentioned that part. Kevin was also tasked with another part of homework to which I wanted him to answer is their basketball court actually hardwood or is it some other type of material?
So I couldn't get that close to it, to be quite frank with you. It looked, thinking back on it, it didn't necessarily look like it was hardwood. So I'm gonna go with no, not hardwood, but no conclusive evidence. I couldn't get that close.
Okay. Yeah, that's about exactly what I've gathered in watching their games from a distance too. So, and just to double check, it was the gray, the kind of grayish blue.
Yeah.
Okay. It's that court in particular that I'm curious what the material is, but we'll figure that out at some other point this season. Maybe I'll ask some people at All-Star Weekend about it. But yeah, back to the Mercury and this just again identity stamping, kind of putting the league on notice type of win that they got over the Minnesota Lynx. Start with no other than Alyssa Thomas. Career high 29 points. Also took a career high 24 shots. That's again not something that she does often in terms of shot volume. You typically feel the impact of her shots because of the pressure that she puts on the defense. And a lot of times, a lot of the attempts that she typically would take from the field end up getting canceled out because she ends up spending time at the free throw line because of the fouls that she draws. Until that point, 29 points. Kevin, I'm putting you on the spot for a quick trivia. So I just got done speaking to Alyssa Thomas, having a career high in points, career high in attempts from the field. If I told you she had 29 points on 24 shots, how many would you maybe guess that she got from the free throw line in particular?
How many points did you get from the free throw line? 29 points on how many shots?
24 shots.
I'm going to say she got 7 from the line.
Okay, so Kevin says she got 7. You are going to be severely underwhelmed, my friend.
Oof.
Severely underwhelmed because Alyssa Thomas only had one trip to the free throw line.
Special.
She scored that 1 point from the free throw line, yes. So she scored 28 points from the field in said game.
That's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, but it's also just, I want to say disrespectful, honestly, because if you have Alyssa Thomas scoring 29 points, mind you, this is a player that shoots 0 attempts from the three-point line. She doesn't even look at the basket from the three-point line. So if Alyssa Thomas is putting up 24 shots, that means there's a lot of stuff going on in the paint in particular, especially in the restricted area. So if you're telling me she was as aggressive in that game as she's ever been across her entire career, taking 24 attempts from the field, and she only has 1 free throw attempt to show for it at the end of that game, that means that the whistle in said game, there's a lot in question with that. She plays through as much contact as anybody in the entire WNBA. You put that in tandem with her also taking that career high in attempts from the field. Something's got to give there. If she's taking 24 shots, she should probably be in double digits in terms of free throw attempts. And that's probably on the low end of it, being at least 10. So, again, just speaking to the brilliance and the greatness that is Alyssa Thomas, she finds another way to have impact in a timely manner for the team and to get them arguably their best win of the season, considering how contentious that game was and the comeback efforts that they had to compile as they were down double digits for a solid portion of the first half. We're kind of flirting with a 6 or 7 point deficit throughout the majority of the second half, and then you get to the clutch, and Alyssa Thomas does what she does as the MVP of the league so far this season, and really puts the team on her back. They put things together on the defensive end of the floor as well, and they get the result that they get, which is a significant win, and again, another win that kind of puts the league on notice for those that have not been paying attention, or for those that question whether what they're doing right now is real. All of that to be said, It's the foundation that they've laid. It's the process that they've laid. It's the identity that they've stamped and continue to deliver on that allow for them to get back into this game, and ultimately get the win. We want to start no further than the by committee approach that they've established. And obviously there's an elephant in the room. There's an all-time great in the room that we're going to speak to a little bit later, in DeWanna Bonner, who made her first appearance in the Mercury jersey in a handful of years. Obviously we'll get to that soon, but I want to start with the blue-collar efforts that this team is able to compile. So for full transparency, the Mercury are 11th in the W right now in terms of total possessions that they play on the offensive end on a per-game basis. That's not a lot. That's a number that is dwindling down. It's trending upward for them as they've kind of increased their efforts on the margins. And they have two margins that they have monsters on, especially over this last handful of games that we're speaking to. And I'm speaking directly to Natasha Mack, Honk, as well as Kalani Brown. And Kevin, if we could get that graphic up with those two in particular, and I'll kind of show everybody what I'm speaking to. So the Mercury have played 5 games since June 27th. In those 5 games, we've seen an emergence and kind of finding her footing of Natasha Mack, as well as Kalani Brown playing a little bit more on the minute side and finding ways to have impact as well. The most significant dynamic of the game that these two's impact can be felt on specifically is on the offensive rebounding end of things. So I just got done speaking to them being 11th in total possessions played on the league spectrum right now. That number is trending upward significantly right now, and it's spearheaded a lot by what these two are doing. I want to also note Alyssa Thomas and Satou Sabally for what they've been doing all season long on the offensive rebounding part in particular. But these two, over this recent stretch, are both top 14 in the league in terms of offensive rebounds gained. Natasha Mack in particular is number 3 in terms of being tied for offensive rebound percentage, as well as the total number of offensive rebounds that she's gained for her team. And on a lot of those possessions that they're garnering, the extra possessions that they're getting for their team, they're getting great shot quality, whether they're putting up attempts directly after the rebounds that they gather, or they're kicking it out to teammates, or they're tapping it out to teammates, and they're able to find great shot quality for someone like Alyssa Thomas or Sammy Wickham or Satou Sabally when they're in the lineup as well. Those little moments like that are why they were able to come back in said game against the New York Liberty earlier this season, but also in their recent game against the Minnesota Lynx, and ultimately push that win across the finish line. It's not that they're able to get those; they're not able to get these wins simply without having the efforts that those two are able to compile. So I want to bring this graphic back up one more quick time just to pay close attention to another number. So looking specifically at the rebounding percentage, 16.9% of the offensive rebounds available. That's what Natasha Mack is bringing in for this team right now. She's just corralling them, finding ways to have impact. Some of it because of the attention that the superstar teammates she's playing with are getting, but also more so than anything else, it's off of the sheer will and the ability to just have that extra effort impact that she brings. Add that as well to everything that Kalani Brown is bringing in addition to Natasha Mack, 14.1 offensive rebound percentage. Those numbers are nothing to scoff at. And I don't think these are numbers that are kind of one-offs or anomalies, if you will. I believe that these two players and the minutes that they get can have an impact that is very similar to this type of impact on volume when they're on the floor. And these are the type of marginal efforts that the team is compiling in a by-committee approach that helps for the wins that they compile and the impact that they're starting to establish, and the league is being put on notice because of it. It's been more of a by-committee thing than it is specific to just the big three, and also even specific to even one of the big three being Alyssa Thomas, who's the MVP so far this season. So we got a handful of other things to kind of dive into, but we want to go ahead and get into a quick little ad break. So we're going to transition into that and then get back to speaking to a couple of other notable players that are significant to everything that the Mercury are establishing. All right, we want to start with Mountain America Credit Union. So, Kevin, question for you. Do you know who is actually in a historic partnership right now with the Phoenix Mercury, having their practice facility renamed after them, as well as making impact in the community with the Phoenix Mercury.
Okay, I was 0 for 1 on trivia earlier, but I'm going to say Mountain America Credit Union.
We have a winner. I'll put that one up on the tee for you, and I feel like it was important to note that because obviously this is a Mercury podcast, and the efforts that these two are bringing forth to establish opportunity for young women in the basketball community here in Arizona is extremely important to note. Mountain America Credit Union has over 100 branches throughout the West. In addition to that, you could also get 2 times the points in terms of rewards on your credit card if you purchase with them through July 31st. That's something you certainly want to make note of and take advantage of. You can use your Mountain America rewards card as well as watch the points pile up. It's perfect for gas, it's perfect for groceries, it's perfect for traveling expenses, it's also perfect for your home projects and all other purchases that you might want to make as the temperature kind of rises and people kind of get into vacation mode when before their kids start going back to school or even the teachers get back into teaching mode. This promotion is an easy way to stretch your dollar since you earn twice as many points with your rewards. It's a limited time only offer, so you want to make sure you take advantage of it while you can. And more details can be found at macu.com/double. Again, macu.com/double. I want to also make sure we note that loans, you can get loans on approved credit as well, and you can also find out from them that they offer chances to potentially have it changed, or you can also have it be withdrawn at any time. Limited time offer for all of these things, as well as terms and conditions applying. Kevin, in addition to Mountain America Credit Union, I want to also ask you, what's your favorite snack from Circle K?
Peanut butter stuffed pretzels or the tornadoes on the rollers. Not even close.
Okay, the peanut butter pretzels are fire. Anybody that's had peanut butter pretzels knows that that's a top tier snack, and I won't debate with it. That just says a lot about you if that's not in your list of snacks. For me, it's the Blue Sharks. The Blue Sharks go crazy. Also want to shout out to the sour watermelon slices as well. Those are really good too. But generally speaking, for me, Circle K, I have about a 15-minute drive to and from work on a daily basis. I probably drive by on a per drive to and from basis at least 15 Circle Ks. They're literally everywhere, and they have everything from drinks to snacks to obviously getting gas more than anything else that you can kind of tap in with and kind of make your commutes that much more enjoyable. You want to make sure you join at the Inner Circle Rewards membership program. Obviously, you can get a percentage off with each time that you fill up with them. You get to certain extents and certain levels, you can get significantly more cent off per gallon of gas that you fill up with as well. So you want to make sure you take full advantage of these opportunities that Circle K affords you. And just a couple of other things that I want to mention with Circle K, because they have all types of drink deals, and these are going to be extremely important, especially if you have children, but even more so if you're by yourself and you're out traveling, as the temperature reaches no less than 100 degrees on a daily basis here in Arizona. You can get 3 for $5 in terms of Gatorade, as well as other types of sports drinks that they have there at a 28 ounce, as well as in a 20 ounce for the Gator Light product that they have as well with Circle K. It's exclusive for their the exclusive flavor that they have as well is the Summer Blaze. You can also get a 2 for $5 Prime at 16.9 ounces as well. That's also they also have a Circle K exclusive flavor in orange cream. So again, just little things that you want to make sure you take advantage of with Circle K. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I want to make sure I mention it one more time as we close. To join the Inner Circle program, you can do so for free by joining via the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply. Participate, or it's at participating locations. You can also visit CircleK.com for more details. All right, back to everything that's going on in Mercury Land and X Factor. You all are being put on to exactly what it looks like when you have multiple players that can step up in a significant role for the team. You've seen multiple players step up and role. We just got done talking about Natasha Mack and Kalani Brown prior to the break. We can also mention names like Sammy Wickham. Also mention names like Monica Cole-McConney. Also mention names like Catherine Westbeld, Lexi Held. All types of players have stepped up in multiple ways to get this team to where they're standing right now, which is being alone is having the second best record in the entire WNBA right now. The one name of those names that I did just get done mentioning that I want to dive in a little bit more detail with is the one and only Monique Cole-McConney. This is not the first time, the second time, the third, fourth, or fifth time that we've given her individual time to kind of receive some flowers for the efforts that she's bringing to the fold for this team to be where they're at in terms of operating at an elite level. Monique is just a player that understands her role, but also has significant opportunity and significant skill to punch out of that role. And we saw that in particular for them to get that win across the finish line against the Minnesota Lynx. So, Kevo, if we could go ahead and get the template for Monique Cole-McConaughey's performance up, you'll see that all of these numbers that I have on this screen right here are all season best numbers for Monique Cole-McConaughey. So 5 rim attempts. So she got to the rim 5 separate times and had 5 attempts there. That number alone, but in tandem with the 14 drives that she compiled over the course of the game, speak to the level of aggression that she's playing with. And in terms of contextualizing that for you all, if you imagine the Mercury have all 3 of their best players on the court and in the rotation, in addition to the rest of the rotation being healthy, more often than not, Monique is going to have a weaker defender that she can kind of take advantage of based off of the matchups and the ways that teams are going to look to want to defend their top 3 players. That's going to present her with plenty of opportunity to execute against defenses that either aren't set or don't have their best type of defenders matched up against her. So if she's able to compile 5 attempts at the rim in multiple ways, as well as getting to 14 drives, which is, like I mentioned earlier, a season best mark, that's the type of pressure that defenses can't necessarily load up for, and they won't really have a response that they'll have to it. They'll just kind of have to live with it. Put that in tandem with the fact that she's been flirting with north of 40, close to 50% from deep all season long. You have the perfect type of piece to be a true X factor for this team on a season-long basis, as well as come playoff time when the games grow more meaningful. I also want to make sure we look at the 13 field goal attempts, which was also, obviously, like I mentioned, a season best number for her. Also, 30 minutes played being a season best mark for her as well. Again, just speaking to the ways in which she operates with this team. These are all offensive numbers. The drives for her in particular, and I'll get to the defense in a second, but for her with the drives, Monique Cole-McConaughey, finding ways to get to it in pick and roll. She ran her most pick and roll possessions on the season so far in that win against the Minnesota Lynx. It's her ability to just find ways to go get a paint touch, not necessarily always drive in a threatening fashion to put pressure on the rim, but to get just enough of a piece of the paint to where she's garnering the attention of multiple defenders. And that playing into her ability to also be a playmaker, because obviously she's a point guard at heart. So her scoring prowess and the threat that it is for her to turn the corner and get a paint touch, attracting extra attention. And now she's finding opportunities to get to that secondary layer of a defense and then find opportunities to get a dump-off pass or score for herself in different situations like that. And just kind of repeating that over the course of meaningful moments over a game. She has that opportunity to do that whenever the team is having her on the court, regardless of what lineup constructs that she's operating with. Those little things are just so important for this team, especially in the timing that they come with her as well. And that only speaking to half of the impact that she brings to the team, because the other half of it is on the defensive end. When she's locked in and when she's engaged and when she's sharp with her defensive process, the team hits differently on the defensive end of the floor. Obviously, if you've been listening to us all season, we've been mentioning that this team is looking to establish themselves on the defensive end first, second, and third, and allow for their identity on that defensive end to lead to successes on offense. They don't play to the ceiling that their defense is capable of punching up towards without Monique Cole-McConaughey being at her best self. And we saw some of her best in that game against the Minnesota Lynx. Yes, she had multiple back and forth moments with the one and only Courtney Williams, who's, again, operating as one of the best offensive talents, especially at the point guard position in the entire WNBA this season. But it wasn't just for her efforts that she was able to compile against Courtney Williams. She had multiple instances elsewhere where I'm imagining she's guarding Diamond Miller, where Diamond Miller, I think it was maybe the third or fourth quarter, gets an opportunity in movement on the drive. And Monique simply just sticks to the hip, slides her feet, doesn't push up too much to where she's fouling, but does enough just to impact everything that Diamond's trying to get out of her drive. Ultimately ends up getting an offensive foul called on Diamond because she closes that airspace and contains the drive so well. And there's multiple other instances of Monique over these last 2 games now for the Phoenix Mercury where she's just extremely active with her help defense. Instances where she's one of the low defenders and she finds time to kind of take away the advantage that a team is trying to create on one side of the floor because she's early in her position for help and just kind of either flattens out action or completely gets in there to kind of disrupt it with deflections and providing types of rim protection in a way that's impactful for this team. Monique is just a player that, again, just understands the role, has great feel and IQ on the court on both ends of the floor, and finds ways to have impact in an impactful manner at the most meaningful moments of games. And she's money more for multiple reasons, and a lot of that money that they're investing in her is coming from her ability to play multiple roles within the scheme of the team on both ends of the floor. And a couple other quick things to kind of note before we kind of head out. A little bit abbreviated of an episode this week as we'll kind of get back into our regular schedule going forward. I also want to make sure to mention where this Phoenix Mercury team is on a league spectrum so far. So we talked about in our last episode, which was about 4 or 5 games ago, the offense was starting to turn corners and catch up with their defense. The defense has been operating at no less than a top 5 level of impact in terms of defensive rating. At this current moment, they're 4th in defensive rating. Their offense now, on a season-long basis, has now matched and met the defensive effort. So they're 4th in offensive rating, they're 4th in defensive rating. You put both of those ratings in tandem with one another, and they're also now 4th in net rating across the entire WNBA. So the only teams ahead of them in terms of net rating, combining their offensive and defensive production, I think 3rd is the Atlanta Dream, 2nd is the New York Liberty, and number 1 is the Minnesota Lynx. The top 4 teams in this WNBA season so far are definitively those 4. I would argue that the Phoenix Mercury have been, at this point, the 2nd best team, just when you add the context of the schedule, as well as the multiple deposits of injury adversity that they've been operating up against, as well as just generally having more newness to their team than any of the other teams that are in that top 4 teams that I'm speaking to right now. They're hitting different. They're starting to find their stride, and they're just continuing to never succumb themselves to the adversity that they're working up against. You mentioned this most recent game operating without 2/3 of their big 3. You also want to mention, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the one and only DeWanna Bonner returning to Phoenix and immediately having impact. Nate Tibbetts, in a kind of saluting type of moment, makes it to where DeWanna is the first player off the bench for the team in that game against the Minnesota Lynx. And it's not just because of kind of paying respects to one of the all-time greats in terms of a Mercury context and all-time great in terms of the entire W, but also because DeWanna is bringing significant impact immediately. She brings significant plus positional size, whether you look at her as a small forward or a power forward. She brings a cerebral type of IQ and veteran presence that's both calming, but also allows for them to be disruptive in the ways that make their team impactful on the defensive end. And then she's also a player on offense that makes quick decisions and that is skilled in a multi-dimensional fashion. Can play with her across multiple lineups. We see her in lineups, obviously, with Alyssa Thomas, but also not specific to Alyssa, in lineups where she's with a traditional center like Kalani Brown or Natasha Mack on the floor. We also saw her in lineups where she's at the 5 and Alyssa Thomas is at the 4, or vice versa. Also spent time on the floor with Catherine Westbeld, with all 3 of any of those 5 players that I just mentioned. And each of those lineups have an impact on both ends of the floor. DeWanna Bonner is going to be very, very good for this Phoenix Mercury team. I think we naturally saw that immediately in her impact that she brought to that game to ultimately win against the Minnesota Lynx. Her ability to guard 5s is going to be something that's extremely important for this team. She can switch. I mentioned on Twitter upon the signing that with her time spent with the Indiana Fever, she was switching at a rate that was significantly higher than at any other point in her career defensively. That's something that certainly can be copied and pasted into the Phoenix Mercury context. Add another layer of defensive versatility to their entire process. And again, more than anything else, she has a lot of kind of skills that are a little bit smaller on impact, but when you put them across the entire impact that she brings to the team, have a loud type of moment over the course of games. She's just a flat out winner. And she adds to that dynamic, as you could say the exact and very same thing about the league MVP right now, Alyssa Thomas. You naturally would say the same thing about 2021 Finals MVP Kahleah Copper and what she's been over the course of her career. You would naturally also say that about Satou Sabally. Naturally, you would also say that about a WNBA champion as well as a WNBL multi-year champion in Sammy Wickham coming off of yet another championship that she won over there in Australia before coming back over to the States, and obviously playing with the Phoenix Mercury. Multiple players that simply have won at multiple stops over the course of their career. DeWanna Bonner adds to that mix, adds to that as well as kind of the balancing out of experience and age on the roster. Obviously, the Mercury having 5 rookies in their main rotation. DeWanna adds to that and bringing a veteran presence to kind of balance things out. And again, just generally adding to the level of competition that this team has and that they're bringing on a nightly basis, and the preparation as well as the urgency that they're operating with. This team is looking to win now. They're not looking to plan for the future. They're doing so, but they're landing the foundation and looking to win now and establishing that via winning more than anything else. That's all we got for you all on this week's episode of PHNX Mercury. You want to make sure, what's up, Kevo?
Before we do get out of here, there were some questions in the chat that I wanted to throw at you.
For sure.
Stephen Weiss says, do we have a big 3, I'm going to say Fantastic 4, or a Fab 5?
Okay, I think those are both great questions. Shout out to Ogre. Shout out to also to Steven. I would say it's still a big 3, and I say it's a big 3 because of the 3 players that are at the top of the roster. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I've mentioned multiple times over the course of the season so far, it's the fact that they have a big 3 template roster-wise, but the impact of the roster's entirety is just so comprehensive that I just say it's by committee. So I say big 3 and then big 3 by committee. I think it's more big 3 by committee more than anything else. I don't want to make it Fab 4 and exclude any of the other players that have that type of marginal and ancillary impact that we've been speaking to. So I would go big 3 by committee. That's what I would dub it as.
Leah Weiss wants to know, what material are most courts made of, in reference to my homework assignment from Atlanta?
Yeah, so most courts are hardwood. They might look a little different in terms of the shine or in terms of what color, what different shades of brown or other different colors teams might use for their home court. But generally speaking, it's typically hardwood. I think on the collegiate level, but even more so on the high school level, you see different types of material kind of be played on. I won't dive into why I don't like that. I'd rather all courts be hardwood for multiple reasons, but yeah, that's kind of the general consensus on the typical material of courts that teams are playing on.
Last question from the chat today is from Danny, who wants to know, or says, hoping SPG sheds some light on why Merc made 2 roster cuts this week. I know why they made 1, but confused about 2.
Yeah, so that's a good question too. Obviously, the roster cut date is coming up for the WNBA within the next week or so. So teams are trying to get their ducks in a row to not just be able to make the roster number in terms of volume that's needed, but also potentially have space to make another move if an opportunity presents itself. Obviously, have space in case of injury, which, as the Mercury have seen all season long, injuries could happen potentially every game. You have to be able to game plan around that and have space to operate under the team's salary cap, but also with the constraints of the roster cut down date that's coming up in the next handful of days as well. So it's kind of a lot of things going into that decision. Naturally, they just want to make sure they have their ducks in a row so that transactionally they can move forward, having some flexibility, but also having some optionality if new opportunities present themselves.
That was it.
All right. Well, that's all we got for you all on this week's episode of PHNX Mercury. I want to also make note that content-wise, prior to our next episode, we'll have a film session coming out. It's kind of diving into the details of everything that has been the Sammy Wickham and Alyssa Thomas experience on the offensive end of the floor, whether Sammy's setting screens for Alyssa is getting into dribble handoffs with Sammy, or Alyssa is setting screens for Sammy in a traditional pick and roll sense. Each 3 of those kind of 2-player actions has been just troublesome for teams to figure out. In each respect of those 3-player contexts that I'm speaking to, they've been absolutely elite on a per-possession basis. And it's something that's really kind of helped to bring that Mercury offense, which I was speaking to, which was operating in kind of a lower third of the league space in terms of production, to now being matched with a top 5 type of production on efficiency for the league so far this season, matching the input and output of their defense. So I'm just diving into the details on that, kind of making it a little more known on what's going on, what's working so well for those 2, and why teams are struggling to figure out how to guard it. A lot of it stemming from the all-time great IQ and experience that those two compile, and just nothing can just really surprise those two in the spaces that they're operating in. So be on the lookout for that between today and tomorrow, or over the weekend prior to the game to come on Monday for the Phoenix Mercury. So we got that coming up. Outside of that, you want to make sure you follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Mercury. Obviously, we'll be active there. Practice today was canceled for the team. End up transitioning into individual workouts, so there won't be any media availability to report from on that front. But we'll have updates for you all coming from practice on Saturday, as well as Sunday before going into Monday's game on the road, and then rolling into next week's game. So y'all also want to make sure you follow me on Twitter at StephenPG3. You want to follow our producer, Kevin Thomas, at Kevo Post on Twitter as well. Yes, he talks Phoenix Mercury basketball, and yes, he's also active in Phoenix Mercury Twitter as well. So you want to make sure you engage and interact with him there as well. With all that being said, though, we appreciate y'all. Y'all enjoy your weekend. No Mercury basketball until Monday. So take some time to kind of keep an eye on what's going on throughout the rest of the league, as the Mercury have a game coming up on Monday with the Golden State Valkyries. Take care. Talk to y'all soon.
We all silly like the mayor.